On the one side, we had to improve the information availability for customers or prospects. On the other side, we had also to have easy and quick information and feedback to them. So if they had a question, we needed to improve the way we communicated with our prospects and customers.
Hey gang, it's Thursday, August 26th. Andres, Matteo, and listeners, welcome to the Behind the Numbers Daily, an eMarketer podcast made possible by VTEX. I'm Marcus, and today I'm joined by two folks, the first of which is Andrés Fuse, who is the general manager at Autogermana, one of VTEX's clients. He joins us today. Welcome to Andres.
Hey Marcus, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you so much for hanging out. We're also joined by Matteo Ceurvels, one of our research analysts who covers Latin America and Spain.
Hey Marcus, glad to be here.
Hello there. So gents, before we start today's show, we start with the fact of the day. Truman Show delusion is a real thing. So people have actually been diagnosed with Truman Show delusion. Named after the 1998 film starring Jim Carrey, this phenomenon was defined in an issue of Cognitive Neuropsychiatry as a novel delusion, primarily persecutory form, in which the patient believes that he or she is being filmed and that the films are being broadcast for the entertainment of others. I've 100% thought this. Have you guys seen The Truman Show? Have we seen it? Did you feel this feeling?
I saw it years ago. It was an interesting concept, but I mean that's going to open up the whole Pandora's box, going down the rabbit hole with that one.
Did you think you were being filmed, Matteo, after watching it?
No, but I mean,
I didn't trust anyone.
Nowadays, yeah.
Did you saw the film, Andres, and did you?
Yes, I did.
Did you feel like you were being filmed?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Well, I would say nowadays sometimes you feel that way, isn't it? I mean, you feel that you might be filmed in your mobile without knowing, or whenever you turn on your camera for a video conference or so, that it keeps keeps filming without you knowing. So I think that feeling sometimes comes to me. Yes.
It's gotten worse, hasn't it? I know. I rewatched the film recently. And I don't know why it was such a stupid move. For the next 3 days, I was suspicious of everyone. I still don't trust my parents completely. Anyway, today's real topic, how people are buying cars differently. All right, folks, today we are talking with Andres, who I mentioned at the beginning. He works for Autogermana. So let's explain, first of all, Andres, who they are. What's the company that you work for? What do they do?
Well, Marcus, Autogermana is a Colombian company established in 1982. And since then, we are the BMW Group importers or distributors in Colombia for the brands BMW, Mini, and BMW Motorrad, which is the motorcycle brand of BMW. This is what we do on our day-to-day business.
Okay. And so you're importing BMW cars and selling them to consumers? Well,
actually, we have a mixed model, to say so, because in some cities in Colombia, we are the retailers as well. For example, in Bogota, in Medellin. But we have also in other cities like Barranquilla or Cali, where we do have independent retailers. So we invoice the cars to those retailers, and they sell the cars or retail the cars to end customers. So we have what we call this mixed model of retailing.
Okay. And so we said GM at the top, that's your job title, but break it down for people. What is your job at Autogermana?
Well, my job is actually taking care of the whole company, the P&L. I have the P&L responsibility of the business. I do take care of the managers responsible for the three brands. So for BMW, for Mini, and for BMW motorcycles. Besides that, I am also responsible for the management of the after-sales business, which is also quite important, and we will deep dive into it afterwards. So in that sense, I run, let's say, the business, the customer treatment. On the other side, I run also the relationship with the factory or BMW itself. Well, actually, it's a regional office, not the factory itself, but a regional office in Mexico. So in that sense, I'm responsible for P&L, for sales, for relationships, and that is more or less my role. Hopefully, I could confuse you with all the things that I do and not do.
You could have just said everything. I'm responsible for everything.
That would have been a nice summary.
Yeah. But no, thank you for explaining anyway. So we've got to start with this question. How has the pandemic changed things for you, for how business works at Autogermana?
Well, actually, I think not only for Autogermana, but I think for everybody, the pandemic changed the paradigm, changed the way we used to do business, the way we used to live, actually. So in that sense, I would say the pandemic turned around 180 degrees the business in the way we knew it. So in that sense, I mean, we had to change since day one in terms of how we retail cars, how we service customers, how we invoice people, how we work together as a team, how we really engage with customers in commercial conversations. So I would say, Marcus, this pandemic made us rephrase and review the whole business as we used to do it beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any examples of how things used to be and how things are now with regards to any of those things that you just explained have changed for the company?
Well, one quick example. I mean, before the pandemic, the physical retail experience was one of the most important touch points with customers. During the pandemic and even afterwards, we felt that it changed completely, and the physical retail experience, let's say, lost a bit of protagonism against the virtual experiences. So now customers are more virtual focused. They do, let's say, online shopping beforehand, before coming to the retailer. And if before the pandemic, we had 3 or 4 visits to the dealership to talk to the salesman, to see the car, to test drive the car, again, maybe to have a second conversation with our product geniuses. Nowadays, the amount of visits to the dealership reduced, and now they come less to the dealership. They come maybe for the test drive, if so, or even not, and to pick up the car. So the rest became a online experience. So in that sense, it changed significantly the way we used to do business before.
Yeah, that's a really, really good example. And so I'm wondering, speaking about how consumers are buying cars differently, you explained that the customer journey has changed. They used to come to the dealership a number of times to do a bunch of different research before pulling the trigger on that sale. In terms of online shopping behaviors, how are you helping customers online? Is it more to do with making sure that someone is available to talk to through the digital channel? Is it more so making sure that there are all the different options for them to customize the car and really do their research?
Actually, it's a combination of the two things you have mentioned, Marcus. On the one side, we had to expand the information we had available for customers, expand the availability in terms of options of colors. We had to improve the way they could see the car. They could see the interiors, the exteriors, change colors, change wheels, for example, the interior color as well. So on the one side, we had to improve the information availability for customers or prospects. On the other side, we had also to have let's say, somebody available to talk or easy and quick information and feedback to them. So if they had a question, we needed to improve the way we communicated with our prospects and customers and get back to them quicker than, even much quicker than before, and even immediately to have online conversations as well. Because customers nowadays also are looking for more immediate information. They just don't want to send an email and wait, let's say, 24 hours to get a response, right? They are willing, if it is like what we call a hot lead, and they are interested really in the product, we need to give them immediate information and feedback about their inquiries. So if it is pricing, if it is, let's say, warranty conditions, if it is availability of different colors and options, it's also a matter of having this information as soon as possible.
Okay. Matteo, what was the landscape like for consumers buying things online in Colombia or shopping online? Was this a relatively developed market in terms of online shopping behavior, or was Colombia kind of a bit caught off guard and a lot of these behaviors are more recent than pre-existing?
I definitely would say, Colombia did take a little bit of time to get on the e-commerce bandwagon, but as in the rest of Latin America, e-commerce had surged in the country, and even more so during the pandemic. There were also some political instability recently, which also prompted people to stay at home a bit more, buy online to kind of avoid the madness of the streets. But it has certainly taken off, and there are still a number of challenges to be dealt with, especially in terms of payments and reconciling all of that aspect. But Colombia is definitely a high growth market, and it's definitely on the radar of many regional businesses and local businesses. I mean, you have even some parts of Colombia that it was always called the Silicon Valley of Latin America because there is a very important tech sector in the country. So lots of opportunity, lots of growth, but it's in the developing stages.
Okay. Andres, what is the Autogermana digital experience trying to achieve? Are you really seeing that as a shopping venue for people to do their research, or are you hoping at some point to be converting more customers to just pulling the trigger and buying the car online?
Well, actually, Marcos, as Matteo mentioned before, I would say Colombia was a bit behind in terms of the implementation route to digitalization in the retail business or car retail business. We had the luck. We started in the late 2018 in this process. So, I mean, we were in a certain way starting to do it. However, we had to speed up the process during the pandemic. And answering your question, I think we are willing to become really or to have a fully available online, let's say online retail shop where customers can really buy the car or do all the touch points to buy the car in our digital experience. So in that sense, we are working with VTEX and they have helped us a lot in developing this digital experience for our customers involving all the different steps. I mean, it's comprehensive in the sense that, we also depend on financing institutions if we are willing to include them in the same experience. We have also to match the customer's interest with what the factory can offer in terms of options. And each option we have to match it with pricing as well. So it's not that easy, it hasn't been that easy, but I think at the end, it is now available, and we do have it available now. It's a retail outlet, but online. So customers can do the whole process of buying a car in our platform digitally.
You mentioned after sales a bit earlier. How has after sales changed since the pandemic?
Well, after sales has changed also significantly in the way that beforehand customers would come, to give you an example, would come to the dealership or service location, just leave the car for service, come on the next day and take the car back. And let's say the biggest expectation was to have the car, let's say on the next day, or if it was maintenance, and nothing more than that. Nowadays, customers are expecting much more. They are not willing to come to the dealership. So even if they have the requirement of doing service, they want their cars to be picked up. They want to have their cars delivered to their houses afterwards. They are requesting a lot more efforts in terms of cleaning the car, of the infecting the car, and so on. And they want to pay online now more than before. They want to make the appointment online as well. Beforehand, they just came up to the dealership. They would leave the car, have a coffee, and then come back on the next day. So it was quite a offline experience. And nowadays we had to quickly involve the online part of it quite rapidly in order to have them to have the option for customers to do the appointment online, to have their car picked up at their houses or offices, to have a very thorough process of cleaning afterwards, and send the car back to the customers to their houses, and have the payment being done online as well. So at the end, after sales, I would say also had a big impact because of this pandemic, but it also, looking at the bright side of it, helped us speed up the process of digitalization in the service or after sales part of our business.
We talked about how the pandemic changed the business for Autogermana. How did the pandemic change your marketing efforts and some of the messaging for the company?
Well, our marketing efforts changed the focus on the way we bring more qualified leads by new digital and customer experience channels. So the qualified leads are now coming, most of them, through these digital channels. So the contact that we are having to customers, as I mentioned before, nowadays more customers come online than offline. Beforehand was quite differently. So e-commerce, a hybrid experience between physical retail and hybrid experience, virtual experiences, and remote communications and messaging have become, let's say, the key part of our communication with customers nowadays. So CRM has become a key element in our strategy. Email marketing or social media and all other digital tools are now being used to keep in touch with our customers. So the next step in that time will be to strengthen this contact with customers to keep on bringing new prospects into our funnel.
What would you say are the top 1 or 2 challenges for the company over the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months?
I would say one of them is differentiating ourselves from the competition. So digitally, it is a bit different than in a physical environment to differentiate our service. So in that sense, differentiation is going to be one of the key challenges for the next few months. Now we have the platform in place, so the differentiation will be key. And on the other side, I would say the second challenge is to massify, if I can use that word. So make more people come to our digital channels, I would say is the next big challenge. A pandemic brought them and made them in a certain way, or forced customers and prospects to make use of digital options. However, I think we are still starting to do so. And one of the challenges will be to try to have much more customers and prospects using our different digital tools that we have in place.
How does Autogermana differentiate online? As you said, it's tough. What are some of the things that you're thinking about in terms of ways to differentiate your company?
Well, I would love your answer on that because we don't have that clear actually. But I mean, speed is going to be a key element. So how fast can you respond to the customer needs of information? Information availability is not that easy. How intuitive is the way customers use your platform against the other ones? How thorough is the information they can find? So what you would like is customers to find all the information or answers to all the questions they have in our site, so in our platforms. So I would say speedness or complete information, a intuitive environment. I would imagine, and just very quickly, without thinking much about it, but those 3 I would say would be the key differentiators that we are seeing from customers and that myself as a customer from different also goods would like to have and would make a differentiation for me as a customer.
Yeah. Matteo, how about for you? Challenges in your mind for retailers, companies in Colombia, bearing in mind the recent consumer behavior shifts that we've seen and will likely to continue to see 6 months, 12 months out and beyond?
I think Andres really hit all the points on the head. I would just probably reiterate the point of omnichannel. I would also probably reiterate that point of using CRM. I think understanding your customer base is key, especially in this digital age, and understanding the different buyer personas, buyer profiles, and how you can tailor the overall shopping experience to them. For instance, millennials buying a car are very different than, say, baby boomers buying a car. There are different buyer personas and different ways to engage with them. Maybe among your younger demographic that will be more intrigued into this whole virtual reality and using these digital tools to get a better sense of the product itself, whereas the older demographic might skew, they might look at the information, need that point of contact with a person, be it in person or be it via a chat to kind of get that information. So I'd say using data to leverage the insights that you have from your proprietary site to make better decisions, and then translating that into what does that mean for the overall shopping experience, both online and offline, and optimizing every touch point so you can actually convert these people into paying customers and ultimately recurring customers down the line.
Gents, time is moving too quick. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much for joining me. Andres, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you, Marcus, for having me.
Of course. Thank you, Matteo.
Thank you, Marcus.
That's it for the lead story. Time now for In Other News. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, Vtex. Everyone is talking about digital transformation, but what does it mean in real life? Digital Insider is a new podcast series about the digitization of retail, where business leaders, academics, and thinkers discuss how businesses are transforming and give their perspectives, practical advice, thought process, and lessons learned. Go to digitalinsider.com to learn more, or listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, folks, we are joined now for In Other News by Blake Droesch, who is one of our analysts on the retail and e-commerce team. Welcome, Blake.
Hey, Marcus, how's it going?
Hey, buddy. Very good. Thanks for asking. Today, in other news, how much customers trust online-only brands? Do people want more or less human interaction when buying something? And what's next for eBay? Story 1. Online-only brands will need to do more to earn customers' trust, writes Insider Intelligence analyst Nina Getson. That's according to a recent Morning Consult report that found 1 in 3, one-third of American adults don't trust retailers that only have an online presence. Blake, what do you make of these findings?
Yeah, I actually don't think that many people inherently distrust brands just because they're online only. I think it's probably more that people are reluctant to trust brands in which they aren't familiar, and many new D2C online only brands just fall into this category. I think the same case would be true like if you were, like say you're in a pharmacy and you see a new toothpaste brand next to Colgate and you've been using Colgate all of your life, you're not going to automatically believe that, this new brand is better than the product that you currently use. You need to be convinced of that because it's an unfamiliar brand. And I think whether you're seeing it online or in store probably doesn't mean as much to most people. And I think that's sort of where, brand marketing in general comes in because it raises awareness around products to then spark word of mouth and then familiarization. And it's not something that I think online only brands have a steeper hurdle in order to achieve that familiarization compared to other brands necessarily.
And to that point, Nina was noting high quality marketing can help get customers more comfortable with a brand, since 85% of US adults said they were more likely to trust a brand with high quality or well-designed ads. That's from a February 2021 survey by creative software company Celtra. Story 2. We know about vending machines. Now there are even robots who can make and serve you a coffee. So do people want more or less human interaction when buying something? Well, according to a recent survey by Cantaloupe and Site Research, showed that 9 out of 10 folks used unattended retail as much or more during the pandemic. Young people more so than others. What reasons did people give for using it? Well, speed and social distancing were joint first. Convenience was just behind in third place. Blake, how do you think consumer attitudes to unattended retail are changing?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of reasons why unattended retail has gained steam over the last year and change. And other than the obvious, which is social distancing, I think, self-checkout is something where it's an option for a lot of major retailers, but they're not always so super user-friendly, especially when you're dealing with larger grocery orders where you have to do the thing where you're weighing the fruits and vegetables, and sometimes the items don't scan and it becomes a pain. But I think at the beginning of the pandemic, people wanted to spend as little time as possible in the store. So maybe they opted for the speed of self-checkout over the convenience of going to the cashier if there's a long line for the cashier. But I think it's become even more common over sort of the last stretch of the pandemic, because now we're dealing with a labor shortage on top of that, and lines at cashiers are presumably much longer, which is going to continue driving more customers to self-checkout stations. And also maybe you're just like me and you want to interact with as few people as possible on a daily basis, and you'd rather just deal with self-checkout.
It's such a pleasure working with Blake. 45% of respondents said not having to talk to a store employee. They're with you, Blake. And having shorter lines were also key drivers for unattended retail. That was up from 2019's 35% who said so. Nearly 7 out of 10 folks said it was important to have a touchless option post-pandemic. Story 3. eBay has made peace with not being an everything store, and it's okay for companies to not have the most grand dreams imaginable, writes Shira Overday of the New York Times. She notes that eBay, who was losing ground pre-pandemic, has decided to focus on selling in areas that are reminiscent of eBay's 1990s roots. Used items and slightly past their peak products, like last year's popular toys and collectibles, including sneakers and trading cards. Because of it, sales are now back up. Blake, what do you make of where eBay is at this moment, where it's heading?
Yeah, and I completely agree. And it's true that as recently as 2019, eBay was second to only Amazon in terms of US e-commerce sales, but it was, perhaps inevitably overtaken by Walmart, and it's probably only a matter of time before it's also surpassed by other big box e-commerce players like Target as they start to grow their business. However, eBay still retains this niche as sort of the place for the secondary online market, and that's a pretty exciting market right now on its own. And I think it's not going to be able to compete with Amazon or Walmart or other big box retailers because that's just not the platform that it's become. But it should focus on competing with the likes of Etsy and I think it's pronounced Depop is the other one that's really popular for used items and do-it-yourself platforms, because that's a business model where it's really much more likely to be successful because it does still sort of retain, that reputation as the place to go for like hard to find and resold items. And I think that's an exciting market in e-commerce right now that's maybe perhaps overlooked by these conversations that we have around retail giants like Amazon, Walmart, etc.
At the start, Blake, you mentioned that of your answer, you mentioned that Walmart had overtaken eBay. It's true in terms of share, in terms of dollars, it's overtaken them. eBay is continuing to make money. The dollars are going up, but in terms of share, it has been overtaken by Walmart and is now in a pretty distant third, all things considered, and the share is ticking down. But in terms of dollars, they are still heading in the right direction. eBay reported 159 million active buyers in Q2, a 2% decline from a year earlier. They have pretty low Q3 revenue guidance. Mr. Overday writes that, quote, eBay may be showing that there is a third path in tech between the beyond earth riches of titans like Amazon and Google and the industry's craters of failure, close quote. That's all we've got time for this episode. Thank you so much to Blake for hanging out.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, and thank you so much to Andres and Matteo for joining me for the first half of the show. Thanks to Victoria, she edits the show. And thanks to everyone listening. We'll see you guys tomorrow for the Behind Them As Weekly Listen, an eMarketer podcast made possible by Vtex.